This map shows Central Asia's mid-19th century borders, marking the Great Game between the British and Russian empires. For the British, India's security depended on monitoring northern overland routes. Any hostile expansion threatened the subcontinent's fertile provinces. Herat acted as a physical buffer separating their spheres. Control over this single city determined the safety of the entire frontier. If Herat were to fall to an Iranian government aligned with Russia, the primary obstacle to an invasion of India would be removed. By 1837, Herat was a city in decay. Its economy had stalled, its population was impoverished, and its defensive walls, the only thing standing between the city and an invader, were literally falling apart. Despite warnings from British diplomats, Muhammad Shah Qajar of Iran saw this weakness as an opportunity. In July 1837, he mobilized a regular army and thousands of tribal fighters to begin the march toward the city. Behind the scenes, Russian advisors encouraged the move, hoping the Shah's campaign would spark anti-British sentiment among local tribes and extend their own influence south. Given the state of the city's defenses, the expectation among military observers was a swift Iranian victory. The Shah's force arrived with heavy artillery and European advisors, prepared to breach the crumbling walls in a matter of weeks. For Britain, the fall of Herat would mean the permanent presence of a Russian-backed power on the direct road to India, a scenario their military strategists had spent years trying to prevent. The swift victory the Shah expected never happened. Instead, the Iranian army remained stalled in the dirt outside the city gates for 10 months. The defense was bolstered by the arrival of Shir Muhammad Khan Hazare, who brought 4,000 infantrymen into the city. These reinforcements provided the manpower needed to hold the gates and man the broken sections of the wall. At the same time, a British officer named Eldred Pottinger managed to slip into the city wearing an Indian disguise. He quickly became a lead advisor, helping the local leaders coordinate their defenses and repair the fortifications under fire. The Iranian artillery, despite its size, failed to create a decisive breach. The earthworks and reinforced mud walls of the city absorbed the impact, leaving the Shah's infantry with no clear path to enter. The siege reached a stalemate. Herat's survival didn't come from a technological advantage, but from a combination of local reinforcements and improvised British tactical advice that neutralized the Shah's numerical superiority. As the siege dragged into 1838, the British government changed their strategy. They stopped trying to negotiate the defense of Herat and started planning an offensive elsewhere. John McNeill, a British representative, walked directly into the Shah's military camp in April to issue a final warning. The siege had to end, or Britain would open a second front. The Shah ignored him. In response, the British Indian fleet landed a force at Kark Island in the Persian Gulf. They occupied the province of Fars and began threatening the major Iranian port at Bushehr. The move was efficient and largely uncontested. While the bulk of the Iranian army was tied down in the north, this small maritime force seized control of the Shah's southern coastline with almost no resistance. These operations were carried out by specialized units from the Bengal, Bombay, and Madras infantries, demonstrating how quickly the British moved imperial troops by sea. This maneuver forced the Shah into a strategic dilemma. He was now caught between a city he couldn't capture in the north and a naval invasion he couldn't stop in the south. The Shah grew desperate to end the siege. He needed his army back in the south to protect the coast, so he gambled on one final attempt to storm the city walls. On June 23, 1838, he launched a general assault. Thousands of troops were sent forward in a direct charge against Herat's defenses in a frantic effort to break the stalemate. The result was a disaster for the attackers. The Iranian army suffered heavy casualties and failed to secure a foothold inside the city, leaving their morale shattered and their ammunition depleted. This tactical defeat at the walls ended the Shah's leverage. Without a victory at Herat, he had no way to justify the cost of the war or the risk of a full-scale confrontation with the British in the south. The British delivered a final ultimatum. The siege must be lifted immediately, or the Shah would face an unrestricted war. Seeing that the British were prepared to escalate, Russia withdrew its advisors and pulled its support. They were unwilling to risk a direct military conflict with Britain over a failed siege. In September 1838, bankrupt and exhausted, the Shah withdrew his remaining forces and returned to his capital with nothing to show for the 10-month campaign. The retreat left Herat in ruins, with its trade routes destroyed and its farmland devastated. But for the British, the outcome was a clear strategic success that removed the immediate Russian threat to the northern frontier. However, the experience left a permanent mark on British policy. The fear of how close the buffer state came to falling led to a period of heightened aggression, driving the British to launch a full-scale invasion of Afghanistan just 1 year later.